Welcome back to TechniqueWOD. My name is Doug Larson from the Barbell Shrugged Podcast. You can find us at barbellshrugged.com. Today we're going to talk about horizontal pulling, specifically any type of rowing, either with a barbell, dumbbell, rings, or what have you. So I'm going to show you a lot of options, but the technique for all of them will be pretty much the same. Really what we're looking at is kind of the opposite of a push-up. If I'm on the ground and I'm doing a push-up, I'm pushing away from me. Rowing is where I have something in front of me, shoulders back, elbows back, and I'm pulling to this kind of good posture, scapular retracted, elbows back position, pulling right to here with as little compensation, as possible. So we'll start with ring rows. If you're a CrossFit athlete that is just getting started on your kind of CrossFit journey and you have a lot of trouble with pull-ups, more than likely you've scaled to ring rows at some point. So usually what we have people do is walk all the way back to here and then walk your feet down a little bit and then they can pull from there. We want elbows down by our sides, shoulder blades come all the way together. I'm not slinging myself up, I'm not reaching with my chin. What I usually do is I show people using this pull as a reference that I pretty much want you to be able to pull back to here like this. A lot of people do a sit-up and they kind of pull like this. The shoulders stay forward and they round their upper back like this, and that's very hard on your shoulders. So we want to discourage that as much as possible. So again, I have new people walk back, get straight arms, and then they walk their feet down. Eventually you can get all the way down where you're pulling up like this, usually with straight legs, but have a box in the way. And then eventually you can put your feet up on a box. If you want to scale this at first, you can do kind of like a kipping ring row where I'm here, shoulder blades are stable, and then I pick my hips up, hips down, hips up, hips down. Eventually I can do this more strict, where I'm just pulling only with my arms and I'm keeping my body nice and straight. Just like that. So, that's ring rows. We program a lot of barbell rows. We program a lot of barbell rows here at Faction. What we have people do is usually grab right outside, maybe a thumb's length away from their thighs. They do a perfect deadlift. They come here, they do perfect deadlift, RDL, bend over as far as you can with a neutral back, and then you're going to row to right above your belly button. Again, shoulders back, elbows back. It's like this. Okay? I never row like this. I don't row straight up like that. Okay? Shoulder blades are down and back. I'm going to row to right above my belly button. A side note is if you're a person who has kind of chronically depressed and downwardly rotated shoulder blades, kind of like I do, because I did a lot of down and back for 15 years before I thought about this other way of doing things. Excuse me. What happens is if I have very depressed, downwardly rotated shoulder blades, instead of really focusing on down and back for me and other people like me, it's okay to focus on kind of straight back. Really, when we say down and back, it's kind of like the knees out cue. We don't really mean knees out, we mean not knees in. So if you're a person that squats like this, we say knees out to put you in a good position, but there's a point of overdoing it where you can kind of twist your knee the other way. So for your shoulders, we always say down and back. Really, we just mean straight back to here. A lot of people, when they row, they shrug. Okay, for those kind of upper back or upper trap dominant people that have weak lower traps, they have trouble keeping their shoulder blades down and back, and they shrug all the time, for those people we say down and back. But again, if you're a person that has chronically depressed, downwardly rotated scapula, you don't have to think down and back, you can think just straight back, or you can even think up and back just a little bit, as long as you're not shrugging like this when you row. Okay? So those are barbell rows. Then you can do the same thing with anything. You can do kettlebell rows. You can use dumbbells the exact same ways you use kettlebells. You can, if you'd like, some people when they're doing strength work, at regular gyms they have chest supported rows. I like a chest supported row, which is going to look just very similar to this here, where I'm on a bench, and if this was a little taller, I'd be here. So I like chest supported rows for people that like to compensate a lot. Like on the bent rows, if you're a person that goes on all of your strength movements, not that using momentum is the end of the world, especially if you're metconning, it's probably a good thing. But if you're trying to build strength specifically in the upper back muscles that do that horizontal pulling motion, then you're cheating yourself just a little bit by using too much momentum, especially at the very start of the movement where my arms are all the way extended. I get all the momentum from my legs, and then I kind of sit up through the movement, and I'm moving the weight, but I'm not working the muscle. They both have application, but in this case, we're talking about working the muscles specifically. So the chest supported row is nice because it takes out the majority of your compensations where you have to do all the pulling with your arms. Momentum is minimized, and you maximize the work the muscle is doing, which is a good thing. Very similar to doing a bench press as opposed to a push-up. A lot of people cheat on push-ups and they do the big snake and they roll off the ground. It makes the movement lighter on the parts of the movement that they're not as strong at, and so they can get the movement done, but they're not necessarily getting any better. They might be working on their fitness, but they're probably not making themselves stronger throughout that range of motion where they're weak, because they compensate and cheat through that part of the movement every single time. A bench press is a little different. You can't cheat as much by rolling yourself off the ground like you can on a push-up. You have to move the weight with your arms 100% of the time. Okay? And there's technique to bench press and all that. I'm not saying there's not, but a very similar concept. Other things, nothing wrong with during your strength work to do something like a one-arm row, where again, neutral spine, hand on the bench, stable shoulder, shoulder back, elbow back. I'm pulling right to here. Here's what it looks like on this side. So I'm here. I'm not like this, pulling straight up like that, or my arm out to the side like this. I have a nice flat back, shoulder back, elbows back, and it'll happen really at the same time. Some people like to look up a little bit. That's okay. I like to keep a neutral neck or look up just a tiny bit. Okay. I don't want to be in the super hyperextended position, but looking up a little bit isn't going to kill you too much. So those are the general concepts. Try to not compensate too much by having that round upper back. You always want a neutral spine, shoulder blades straight back. You never want your shoulder you never want your shoulder forward with your elbow back at the same time. You always want shoulder back and elbow back together. Okay. So if you're a person that has trouble with having achy shoulders all the time, and you're doing a lot of jerks and a lot of kipping pull-ups, then horizontal rows are something that you can cycle onto for a little while. It'll help build up more scapular stability, and it'll be much easier on your shoulders. That way you can still gain strength in all of your upper back muscles without necessarily beating up your shoulders quite as much as you would if you only did pull-ups and jerks and you never did push-ups and horizontal rows. So generally horizontal things are much easier on your shoulders than up and down presses and pulls. So hopefully that helps. If you have more questions about horizontal pulling and rows, you can reach us at barbellshrugged.com. Click the Ask a Question tab at the top of the page. You can ask us a question by filling out that very short survey, or you can always hit us up on Twitter and Facebook.
If you like this video or any of our other videos, make sure to share it on your Facebook wall by clicking share, and then the Facebook icon, and then also like it. Thanks, Shrug Thugs.